They told me never to open the basement door after sunset. They said the house remembers every soul that enters it. But I didn't listen. And now, every night at 2:07 a.m., someone knocks on my door. I used to think it was just in my head. But then I found my name, carved in stone, deep underground. If you're watching this, it might already be too late to forget what I'm about to tell you. This is the story of the ominous door that only opens at night. I never should have taken that job. But when you're broke and out of options, even the strange ones start to look promising. At the time it felt like a rescue. Now I know it was a trap. But traps never look like traps until you've already stepped inside. The job listing popped up in the middle of the night. I was scrolling through sketchy websites, hunting for anything that would cover rent for another month. It was titled, "Caretaker Needed, Remote Estate, Room and Board Included." Click. The description was vague. Maintain property. Keep a daily log. Minimal guest interaction. $4,500 per month. Must be comfortable with rural isolation. That last line should have been a warning. But I was desperate. Called the number. A woman picked up on the second ring. Her name was Eliza Blackwood. Her voice was soft, deliberate. She didn't waste words. She asked me strange questions, things like, "Are you a light sleeper? Do you have any fears related to architecture? Do you have a history of hallucinations during stress?" Thought she was joking. I laughed. I didn't. Still, she told me I was approved. I'd receive a train ticket by email. Someone would pick me up at the last station. I should have known then. The place was called Rookridge House. I found it on Google Maps. Tucked away deep in Vermont. Nothing for miles. No stores. No gas stations. Just a dot in the trees. When I arrived at the station, a van was waiting. The driver was a silent man in his 60s named Curtis Malone. He didn't ask questions. Didn't offer small talk. He just nodded once when I said my name, then drove. It was almost an hour before we turned down a gravel road, winding through a thick pine forest. Then I saw it. Rookridge House. It was massive. Not creepy in the haunted mansion sense. More like sterile. Too perfect. Too still. Every window matched. Same size. Same shape. Same distance apart. The porch had no steps. Just a ramp that sloped toward the front door. There was no doorbell. No mailbox. And no sign of Eliza Blackwood. Instead, a single envelope was taped to the door. "Welcome. Your room is on the second floor, third door on the right. The kitchen is stocked. Your responsibilities are outlined in the study. Please read the house rules immediately. Do not open the basement door after sunset." Eliza Blackwood. That was it. The door creaked when I opened it. The inside smelled faintly of cedar and old paper. It was too quiet. No humming appliances. No wall clocks. Just stillness. My room was clean. Plain. The bed was stiff but unused. Like no one had ever actually lived there. The study had a leather chair and a narrow desk with a thick logbook. Every page was dated. Every entry written in the same neat handwriting. But the dates were years apart. I flipped to the most recent one. Day 2/21. Heard it again last night. The doorknob was cold this time. I swear something moved beneath the threshold. I didn't check. Not making that mistake again. Jonathan Turner. The name struck me. Why hadn't I heard of him? No other entries followed. That's when I noticed something in the hall. Tucked behind the stairwell, mostly hidden by a tall coat rack, was a door. Short door. Narrow. Painted matte black. No handle. No trim. Just a rusted latch near the base. I walked over. Knock once. Nothing. I touched the wood. It was cold. Not cool. Cold like metal left outside in January. Backed away. Later that evening, I found the house rules posted above the desk in my room. Keep the hallway lights on after sunset. Lock all bedroom doors by midnight. If you hear knocking on your door after 2 a.m., do not respond. Do not open the basement door after sunset. Do not attempt to leave the house after dark. I read it twice. Then again. Didn't feel like instructions. Felt like a warning. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. No traffic sounds. No night birds. Just the thick weight of silence. At exactly 1:47 a.m., I heard something move downstairs. Slow footsteps. Pacing. At 2:06 a.m., there was a knock on my bedroom door. Just once. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Waited. Nothing else followed. When the sun rose, I opened the door. The hallway was empty, but the black door near the stairs, it looked different, almost like it had been opened. Just a crack. The crack in the black door lingered in my mind for hours after I first saw it. Every time I passed that narrow hallway, my eyes would instinctively dart to it, just to make sure it was still closed, just to confirm it was still there. But the longer I stayed at Rookridge House, the more that door seemed to shift in the corners of my vision, sometimes wider, sometimes narrower, like it was breathing. Days blended together in the eerie silence of the estate. The only sounds were the rustling of pine needles outside and the creaking of the old wood beneath my feet. The forest surrounded the house like a wall of green, blocking out everything beyond. No towns, no neighbors, nothing but endless trees and the cold wind. Curtis Malone, the driver who picked me up from the station, stopped by once or twice a week to deliver supplies. But he never stayed long. He never looked me in the eyes. Just a curt nod, a handful of groceries, and a quick retreat to his van. Then on the 7th day, a figure I had only heard of before arrived. Eliza Blackwood. She stepped out of the van wearing a long black coat that swallowed her slight frame. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, and her dark eyes held a weight I couldn't place. She carried a small rusted key on a chain, the same key she'd mentioned on the phone, the key to the basement door. Her voice was soft but firm as she handed it to me. "Remember," she said, "the basement door is locked for a reason. Never open it after sunset." I tried to ask more, but she simply shook her head and smiled sadly. "No questions. Just keep the logs and stay safe." Days stretched on. Every night I forced myself to follow the rules. Hallway lights on. Doors locked. No answering knocks. But the silence was deceptive. Some nights when I lay in bed, I thought I heard whispers. Soft, unintelligible murmurs drifting through the walls. Other times the floorboards creaked when no one was there. On the 10th night, I found a strange symbol carved into the wooden frame of my bedroom door. A spiral surrounded by jagged lines. It hadn't been there the day before. I traced it with my fingers, feeling the rough edges beneath my skin. That same symbol appeared on the basement door, barely visible beneath layers of chipped paint. My mind raced back to the journal I had found, the one written by Edward Harrington. His warnings about the door being a gate, a portal to something dark and hungry. I couldn't shake the feeling that the house was alive, that it was waiting for someone to cross the line. That night, at exactly 2:07 a.m., the knocking came again. 4 sharp raps on my bedroom door. I didn't respond. I lay still, heart pounding, listening as the footsteps moved away down the hallway. Curiosity and fear battled within me. At 2:15 a.m., I finally found myself standing in front of the black basement door. I gripped the rusted key Eliza had given me. The cold latch was ice cold against my skin. I hesitated. Then I turned the key. The door creaked open. A rush of cold, damp air hit me like a wall. I stepped inside, feeling the darkness swallow me whole. The basement was a labyrinth of stone walls covered with those strange symbols. Spirals, circles, and lines that seemed to shift and move when I blinked. As I moved deeper, I saw names carved into the stone. Names that sent chills down my spine. Jonathan Turner, Edward Harrington, and my own name, Michael Reynolds. A sudden noise behind me made me spin around. The door slammed shut. I was trapped. The moment the basement door slammed shut behind me, the cold darkness pressed against my skin like a living thing. My breath came out in visible puffs, though the air was still. I fumbled for the small flashlight I'd brought with me, flicking it on with trembling fingers. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing rough stone walls etched with those strange, swirling symbols. They seemed to pulse softly, glowing faintly as if alive. My heart pounded against my ribs as I scanned the narrow hallway that stretched deeper into the basement. My feet echoed on the cold stone floor, each step magnified in the silence. The air was thick with dampness, carrying the scent of mold and decay. I realized with a sinking feeling that the basement was much larger than I had imagined. Deeper in, the walls were covered with countless names. Some carved neatly, others scratched hastily. I recognized a few from the journal and logbook. The names of previous caretakers. Jonathan Turner, I whispered, my voice trembling. Edward Harrington. And then I saw it. My own name, Michael Reynolds, etched into the stone. A wave of panic crashed over me. Had the house marked me as its next prisoner? Was this basement some kind of tomb for lost souls? I pressed forward, desperate to find an exit. The passage twisted and turned, disorienting me. Shadows danced at the edge of the flashlight's glow. Suddenly I heard a whisper. My name. Michael. Froze. The voice was faint, almost pleading. Who's there? Called out, my voice cracking. Silence. Then a low, cold breath brushed against my ear. The symbols along the walls flared brighter, bathing the room in an eerie bluish light. The air seemed to hum with energy. A shadow moved at the edge of my vision, a figure with no face, just a dark void where eyes should be. I stumbled back, heart racing, and ran toward what I hoped was the way out. But the basement twisted unnaturally. Hallways I had just passed through looped back on themselves. I was trapped in a labyrinth. The cold void followed. I felt its presence, hungry and unrelenting. I clutched the rusted key tightly, searching for any door that might lead me out. Suddenly a door appeared, A door I hadn't seen before. It was wooden, ancient, and carved with spirals matching those on the walls. I fumbled with the key, and to my surprise it fit. The door creaked open, revealing a narrow staircase leading upward. I didn't hesitate. I scrambled up the steps, ignoring the cold hands that seemed to brush my skin. When I burst into the night air, the stars burned bright above me. But the forest looked different. Darker, more menacing. I was outside the house, but not outside its grasp. The forest around Rookridge House wasn't the friendly woods I had imagined. The trees seemed to lean closer, their branches clawing at the sky like skeletal fingers. A thick fog rolled over the ground, curling around my ankles like ghostly tendrils. I ran without looking back. Every step was muffled by the soft earth beneath me. The ominous door had opened, and something had followed me out. I could feel it, a weight in my chest, a cold breath at my neck. The further I ran, the heavier it became. After what felt like hours, I stumbled onto a narrow dirt road. In the distance, the faint glow of a town's lights flickered. Relief surged through me. But when I tried to call for help, my phone was dead. No signal, no battery, just black silence. I realized then the house had taken more than my peace of mind. It had stolen my connection to the world. I walked toward the lights, hoping for help. But the town was abandoned. Empty streets, boarded windows, rusted cars, like a ghost town frozen in time. I found a small diner and pushed the door open. Inside, the air was stale. The silence was broken only by a clock ticking loudly somewhere in the back. A man sat at the counter. His face was pale, eyes sunken. He looked up slowly and smiled, a smile with no warmth. "Welcome, Michael," he said. My heart sank. "How do you know my name?" He chuckled softly. "This place remembers everyone who passes through. And the door always opens at night." I tried to leave, but the door slammed shut behind me. The diner transformed. Walls shifted and twisted. The ceiling stretched impossibly high. I was trapped in a nightmare that wasn't mine. Voices whispered from the shadows. Faces appeared in the mirrors. I realized then the truth. The ominous door was not just a door. It was a gateway to something dark, something eternal, something that wanted me forever. I screamed. But the darkness swallowed my voice. And I knew. This was only the beginning. There are places that pretend to be buildings. Places that wear the skin of homes or towns or rooms. But deep down, they are something else entirely. I know this now. I don't know how long I was trapped inside that diner. Felt like days. Weeks maybe. Time didn't behave normally anymore. There were no clocks, no windows, no sunrise or sunset. The same pale man who welcomed me. His name was Thomas Holloway, I later learned. Spoke in riddles and half memories. Sometimes he seemed to forget I was even there. Other times, he'd sit across from me and whisper things I wish I could forget. "You were chosen," he said once, sipping from an empty coffee cup. "Some doors don't just open. They take." Every so often the door would appear again. The black one, just like at Rookridge House. It would stand against a wall where no door had been before. Sometimes it opened, revealing endless stairs or a hall of mirrors or just a flat, gray void. I never walked through it, but others did. I saw them, pale, flickering forms, men and women, some old, some young. Some whispered names as they passed me. Jonathan Turner, Edward Harrington, and then a woman I'd never seen before. Rebecca Vale. The name echoed in my ears. She looked young, barely 20, but her eyes were ancient. She stopped beside me once, her voice thin and paper dry. You have to remember who you are. That's the only way out. I asked her. Out of what? She just pointed upward. The house is a cycle. The door is the wound. You've fallen inside. And then she vanished. Days, maybe months, later I woke up in my room at Rookridge House. As if none of it had happened. The sunlight streamed through the window. Birdsong echoed in the trees. But the black door was open, wide open, and something stood behind it. Figure. Looked like me. Same face. Same clothes. Same scar on the hand from when I was 12. But its eyes were hollow. Smile was wrong. I backed away. But it stepped into the hallway, calm and silent. I locked myself in my room. 4 hours it stood outside the door, breathing, whispering my name. Michael Reynolds. Michael Reynolds. Michael Reynolds. I clutched the logbook to my chest and flipped to the last page. To my horror, the final entry had changed. Day 365. He let it in. He walked through the door. He no longer remembers who he was. His name is fading. I'm sorry, Michael Reynolds. Eliza Blackwood. I didn't write that. But it was written in my handwriting. When I looked into the mirror that evening, I didn't see myself. Not entirely. Something had shifted. The edges of me were smudging, blurring. Names began disappearing from my memory. My childhood friend's name. My father's middle name. My old schoolteacher. Ran. Down the stairs. Past the kitchen. Through the front door. But the woods had changed. The trees were no longer trees. They were shapes. Shadows. Faces stared at me from the bark. Silent. Watching. I screamed for help. But my voice didn't carry. The air swallowed it whole. Then I heard a voice behind me. Familiar. Eliza Blackwood, I whispered. She stepped through the trees, her coat billowing behind her like smoke. You went too deep, she said gently. You opened it too wide. And now, the house remembers you. I want out, I said. My voice was hoarse, dry. Eliza Blackwood nodded. You can leave. But you won't return as yourself. I didn't understand. Then she reached into her coat and pulled out a mirror. She held it up to me. I saw my reflection. But it wasn't mine. It was the figure from the door. The thing with my face and empty eyes. I stumbled back. You walked through the door, she said. Once. In the basement. Maybe in the diner. Or maybe in your dreams. It doesn't matter. The door takes. Slowly. But I can still feel like me, I said. I can remember things. For now, Eliza said, lowering the mirror. But the door isn't finished. It never is. The fog rolled in then, thick and white. And when it cleared, I was back in the house. Rookridge House. Standing at the front door with a suitcase in my hand. Just like the first day. Except this time, the logbook was blank. The house was quiet. And I remembered less. I forgot my last name that week. Then my brother's face. Then my hometown. But the rules remained. Keep the hallway lights on. Lock the doors before midnight. Don't respond to knocks. And never ever open the basement door after sunset. That was 6 months ago. Now I sit in the study, writing these words by hand, though I'm not sure why. Maybe someone will find this. Maybe they'll see my name, Michael, and remember me. Or maybe they'll open the door too. And forget everything. Just like I have.